All right, Keyshawn Boutte is back in the 2023 NFL Draft. We're going to tell you all about his skill set, where we have him ranked, and where his ideal landing spots would be for your Dynasty team. But first, obviously, we are dedicated to giving you Dynasty content as we are doing this emergency video for the breaking news of Keyshawn Boutte. So make sure you subscribe to our channel. We are going to come out with all kinds of new Dynasty content to help you win your leagues. We're going to be up to date. We're going to try to be accurate, and we hope that you'll be able to subscribe for us. Let's get into the news. So, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month and a half ago, Keyshawn Boutte going back to school didn't really affect the value of the 23 draft picks because it's such a deep class, because you've got so many good running backs, because you've got multiple quarterbacks that are going to be relevant this year. So everybody's kind of like, bummer, but it made sense. He was underwhelming this year. Moving on. Now, Keyshawn Boutte, he decided he didn't want to stay another year with Brian Kelly, which can you really blame him on, honestly? So he's back in the NFL draft, and now this changes a lot because now in Dynasty, he's looking like he's going to be a first-round Dynasty pick pretty much right off the bat here, regardless of his season. So let's get into Keyshawn Boutte. Let's give you the full breakdown. We're going to tell you how you should be approaching him, especially as a Dynasty prospect. Let's start with his skill set. So tell me what you've seen from his film. Tell me what you like, skill set wise, what you think he's got to improve on. Maybe why he had an underwhelming year this year. Obviously, we got to get into all that. So give me what you think, Simon.
Yeah. Well, to start off, he probably runs about a 4.4 40-yard dash, which is good. We like to see that. Some people say he runs in the 4.3s, but we'll see. We'll see at the combine. Really, last year, what he is good at is he's snappy, he's quick, and he's agile. And a lot of people would say he's a good route runner because of that, but as I was just telling these guys earlier, what I see when I watch his film is that he's not necessarily a special route runner. I like to see someone like Jackson Smith-Njigba where you watch him set up the DB, and he sets them up with a goal in mind because he wants to get them to turn their hips so that he can then whip back the other way and he's wide open. And that's something that I don't see Boutte necessarily doing on film. And to be fully transparent, I didn't watch most of his junior year film because he was underwhelming, and I'd watched him last year a lot. But yeah, there's that's not to say he's bad because he's quick, he's good in open space, and you see LSU, especially his sophomore year, used him a lot in his wide receiver screens. He had a lot of yards after the catch, and that's how he racked up those. He had like 500 and something yards in 6 games, 9 touchdowns on 38 receptions.
Yeah.
And that was really good per game production. And obviously he was doing that at 19 years old. So he's still a very elite prospect in a lot of ways.
Yeah, what stood out to me the most is kind of like what Simon said. I actually was one of those people where I kind of first watched him and I was like, okay, his route running, like I would say it was good. And then the way you described it, I think I probably agree with you there. He's nothing incredibly special like Jackson Smith-Njigba would be in terms of route running, but he is a smart route runner.
True.
Where he is very aware of the open spaces in the zone, and he will get himself open for his quarterback when he needs to. I watched the UCLA game from last year in 2021 where there was just this broken play. The QB's first read was it just went to crap, and he didn't know what to do with the ball. And Boutte just did a little. He just turned back around, found the open spot in the zone between like 4 defenders, and he was just able to drop it in there, and they got a first down out of it. It was really nice to see.
Yeah.
And then after the catch, I mean, that speaks for itself. I think his ability after the catch is really nice.
Yeah,
so.
I think you're right there, and I think he is. I'm not sure he's sub 4.4 fast, like you kind of mentioned there, although people will probably claim that he is. If he is, I think that's a different story.
He looks fast to the naked eye.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Every wide receiver is sub 4.4 before the combine. Everyone's claiming that their guy runs a 4.28, and it never happens.
So, and in my kind of takeaway, watching his film, I'm kind of the same opinion, Simon, that I think his route running could be slightly better, especially, in terms of just off the line and before he gets into the actual stem of his route. I do think he can work on turning the defender more, getting a little bit more separation. That said, he's so athletic and he is so quick, and his acceleration is at least good and probably very good, that after the catch, he typically can turn it upfield and turn on the jets. And that's why you saw LSU trying to use Keyshawn Boutte in space. So you saw them throwing a lot of different screen passes, getting the ball behind the line, line. They wanted to get him the ball so he could use his athleticism, his shiftiness. He's got nice twitch, so he could try to get in the open field, beat his defenders, use his athleticism. I think he's got great skills on the ball in terms of, when the ball is coming towards him, that man is going to more than likely catch the ball. He's got great awareness, especially, boundary awareness, things like that. I think he works the boundaries really, really well. So there's a lot to like about Keyshawn Boutte. So let's get into the thing that there's really not to like, and that is his production. So, obviously, if we were coming out here and saying that production was king, then Jackson Smith-Njigba would be trash this year because he had like 50 yards. But that's not always the case. Let's talk about it. What was his numbers this year at LSU? Let's get into why they were that way.
He played 11 games. He had 48 receptions off 74 targets. His yards per reception went down full 2 yards, 11.2 yards per reception off of 538 receiving yards. A catch rate of 65%. That is not super amazing. And then the receiving touchdowns, only 2. There's really nothing to like. And honestly, I would even argue not really much to take away from this year when it comes to Boutte. I mean, he's coming into this new Brian Kelly offense where Brian Kelly has never really in his time at Notre Dame ever developed a elite prospect of a wide receiver. He went to LSU. Boutte went to LSU originally to be a part of the Ed Oranger offense, and then he gets fired, or LSU parts ways with him. I don't, because of his talent level, we expected him to produce at a high level this year, and I think we were all just disappointed, and maybe we should have known better.
Yeah.
I would argue. Not to say that it wasn't disappointing, but I mean, Simon, what do you think about this production, and do you think we should kind of just look past it and look forward to the NFL draft?
I mean, he broke out as an 18-year-old. He broke out as a freshman, put up 735 yards or something. I don't have it right in front of me.
Yep, you're right on.
There we go. But the problem was this year, so a lot of guys, especially in Devy, are into like more advanced metrics, and you look at one thing in particular is yards per team pass attempt, because it tells not just, so a guy might have put up 600 yards, but it's out of their quarterback's 2,000. Sure. That's a big majority of it. And so that tells like how they're dominating the field. So someone like Treylon Burks last year, who had like 2.5 yards per team pass attempt, and you knew, even though his quarterback was bad and they didn't pass much, just how much he was dominating that passing game. All that to say, Boutte only had 1.45 yards per team pass attempt this last season, which is why it was so worrisome. And he wasn't even the best receiver on his own team. Sure. But let's stick to the positive narrative and look back at his freshman year and his sophomore year, where he put up 700 yards as a freshman, and in 6 games as a sophomore put up 500 and something. So that, I mean, there's still it was there in the beginning. And I like to say it was, like you were saying, maybe it's because of Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, another thing could also just be quarterback play. Let's just be honest.
That's why you look at yards per team pass attempt, though.
Yeah. I mean, they had 3 different quarterbacks last year in 2021. Miles Brennan, TJ Finley, Max Johnson, all those guys pretty much no names. And then they bring in Jaden Daniels, who throws for a whopping 2,700 yards for 16 touchdowns. Like, there's not a ton of volume to go around there anyways. So,
yeah. No, I agree. And so for me, I am looking at Brian Kelly and thinking he's probably, I don't know. It is important. I mean, I do think the amount of games he played, he probably should have produced more. But at the same time, I really don't think Boutte was used right at LSU. At the very, very least, I think he could have been used better than he was. And I think he was used better at the tail end of the Edo coaching administration there. But, getting that, I mean, those last years that Coach O was there, coupled with the first year that Brian Kelly has been there, which has been kind of a crap show and, trying to talk in a Southern accent and fake it, not the best probably. He's probably not received the best coaching. And with the turmoil, especially, kind of on the assistant staff as well, I think you can kind of see in his game, he didn't super develop in terms of, from last year to this year, everybody was going to be looking to see, was he doing some of these things better, like manipulation of the DB? And you didn't really see a lot of it. And then I think with that coupled with the fact that, the coaching and not the best, I think we've got to look at Boutte with a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of an open mind, I would say, because
I think we've all established here, and a lot of other people, that the talent is there. The talent is there. The production is not. The usage is not. So with that being said, what are we going to look to for the future? Well, we're going to look at the combine numbers.
Yes,
we're going to see how he does there, and then we're also, I mean, ranking wise, he's absolutely, without a question, for me, a top 5 wide receiver in this class. And I mean, going into this year, he was easily the number 2 wide receiver, just behind Jackson Smith and Jigba, and was even branded as a guy who could possibly give him a run for his money if he had a really good year.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he had a better year than JSN.
Right. So at this point, though, like, I don't think any of us are willing to put him ahead of Addison.
No,
as the wide receiver.
Where are you guys putting
in this
him
class? I'm debating between wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4. I think right now, because of this news just breaking out and us just starting to look at his film, I think I'll be conservative and put him at wide receiver 4 for now, and then we'll see what happens in the next few months.
Yeah.
So
if you go check out our recent video where we ranked the rookies into tiers, we did have Quentin Johnston and help add Jordan Addison in the same tier. I would put Boutte in the tier with Addison and Johnston. I would probably give the nod to Boutte because I think Boutte is a little bit safer of a prospect, less likely to be a bust than Johnston is. But that being said, given that they're in the same tier, I think you could really go either or. I think putting him in this tier is good given his production this year and given that he's been somewhat of a disappointment. It's also kind of disappointing, based on where we had him last year. So in terms of wide receivers, I'll go 3 for now, but in the same tier, in that second tier with Addison, with Johnston. And I think you're going 4 and putting him behind Johnston. Are you putting him in the same tier as those guys?
No, I'm actually not. I'm putting him below.
So you're dropping a tier.
And let me put this in perspective. Like I said, 1.45 yards per team pass attempt.
That's really
Malik Neighbors was a sophomore, and he had 2.2 yards per team pass attempt. And then let's put an elite wide receiver in this mix. 2.2 for a sophomore, Malik Neighbors on the same team is really good. That's just showing every time Jaden Daniels is throwing the ball, Boutte is getting 1.45 yards, like on average, and Neighbors is getting 2.2. Last year, JSN had 3.6 yards per team pass attempt. So like he's not even half. Boutte's not even half what JSN did in his elite season, and you don't like to see that from a junior wide receiver coming out.
What was JSN this year?
It's
really hard for me to put him a tier below based on
was not hurt
one
this year.
Advanced metric. I get it, but at the same time, I think there are plenty of logical explanations to why that could have happened. I guess we're just going to have to see when he comes in and obviously does the combine and where he's drafted, what NFL teams think of that. I think we're going to get a really, really good answer of how the NFL is valuing Boutte, what they think of his season last year, and how it was underwhelming. And given that, I want to talk a little bit about potential landing spots. So again, Boutte, thinking about the mold of wide receiver he is. He's 6 foot, I think, right? And so not the biggest guy, and he's quick and he's good in space. So, for me, I'm thinking, okay, this guy probably going to be good paired with, he has 6 foot, 185, 190. Probably going to be paired well with a bigger body wide receiver, downfield threat, like an A.J. Brown type and something of that manner. So when I'm thinking landing spots, I'll give you the one off the top of my head that I would honestly love to see, and this is a homer pick, but I'd love to see him paired with Pittman and Pierce. I think he's miles better than Alec Pierce for sure. But Pittman is a pretty big body wide receiver, and the Colts really don't have. I mean, Paris Campbell was that guy in their offense this year so that they could use him as an explosive wide receiving playmaker. I think Boutte has quite a bit of higher ceiling than Paris Campbell is. You'll get him on a rookie contract. I think he would fit well in that offense with Will Levis, wink, and hoping he goes there. And, that is a team that desperately needs a playmaker in space like that. But who do you guys think in terms of landing spots interesting for him to go to?
Yeah, I mean, do you think that if he were to potentially go to the Colts, do you think he would drop all the way down to the 205, or do you think he's going late first?
No, I'd assume he's still going late first. We'll have to see how the combine goes.
So, yeah. I mean, so then in that case, he's probably going to a contending team. So I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, I mean, I said the Falcons.
Yeah,
as,
with Drake
as a
London.
nice landing
the
spot
Falcons
because
are contenders.
no, but they're not going to be. They're. I don't think they're going to be in the market for a quarterback unless they trade up because they're. What's their record right now? How many wins do they have? 6.
Sure.
I don't know.
5 or 6 wins.
I think them benching Mariota and going with Ritter and Ritter sucking says quite a bit about their
that's true.
aspirations
That's
at quarterback.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, they're going to have to trade up and get Stroud.
No, you're
Bryce
right.
Young
You're right.
if they want to get a
or they're
quarterback.
going to have to
And if
draft Anthony Richardson. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
I mean their defense is bad too. They could just they could just go defense there too. But I think just with
would be good there though with a good quarterback.
Yeah, with the lack of overall talent
I mean,
there.
yeah.
and
There's plenty
Drake London is the only one, and then
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts at tight end. But like
But you're two big guys, going to be downfield threats.
they could do really well with
Yes,
a guy
I
like
think,
Boutte.
I think he'd fit there if they actually get somebody that can throw the ball in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of contending teams that need wide receivers. I mean, the Bengals don't, the Eagles don't, but the Bills will likely be looking for a second to Stephon Diggs.
He'd be good on the Bills.
The Chiefs are looking to a second to Travis Kelce.
Really
so, like,
nice
I mean,
there.
there's plenty of teams. I mean, the Vikings don't really need someone necessarily. I mean,
Although I think you do fine in the Vikings. I mean,
Yes.
with Hawk and J. Jeff, but
Yes.
because Osborne's not.
I'm just
there.
saying, like, if theoretically he goes late first, there's going to be some really nice landing
The
spots.
Packers would have an early enough pick where maybe they could grab him.
I don't think the 49ers would bite on him.
No,
Knowing
they don't need to.
knowing John Lynch. So
No, they don't need it either.
No.
obviously, again, a lot of this is going to be draft capital dependent. And a question on that. So you do think he's still going to go late first in the NFL draft?
Yeah, because of his early production, I would hope so.
I mean, I think if he goes,
I think he has all the tools, and that you said this earlier. Route running can be coached in the NFL. Route running can be coached. You see it out of Ohio State. That is coached into them. He has all the tools, and I think
that is
can click.
That
It'll
is
all
the
come
one thing
together.
that's encouraging to me. And we were talking about this off camera. Some of the things that I have a gripe with Keyshawn Boutte, I think they can be coached. And again, I think it's been a kind of a lack of coaching. I don't think he's gotten the best coaching. That's just a hunch. That's not. I don't have hard information.
And
on
I mean
that.
the fact that he was pretty much consensus 102 going into this year, and even throughout while he was playing poorly, then announces that he's not going into the draft, and then he changes his mind. It is like there is a potential that you could get a nice discount for him, or even like he could be a good value where he ends up going in dynasty rookie drafts.
The way I would
absolutely.
say it, his game does not have a red flag. The red flag was his production this last year.
Which, to me, I would much rather I think it be that than something else. Because, I mean, production can obviously be situationally dependent. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just going to depend on what the dynasty community ends up thinking about Boutte. I think if he is the third wide receiver off the board in the draft, like, there's no way you can't rank him as the third wide receiver in dynasty rookie draft. So, again, we just have to analyze these prospects from a fantasy perspective. And the nice thing about it is the NFL does all of the work for us. All we have to really look at is the draft capital and the landing spot. And from those two things alone, we can make a pretty good recommendation on where we should be taking some of these players in rookie drafts. So we can tell you right now, we're pretty comfortable saying that he is a very, very special player. He obviously had a disappointing season, but we're looking for him to kind of get back on track in the combine, and we think if he makes it to the right spot and receives the right coaching, that he could be an elite dynasty asset. We thought he had that ceiling a year ago. Some people may not think that anymore, but again, winning dynasty sometimes is just kind of seeing through all the hills and valleys and just looking at a prospect and saying, this guy's special. Take your shot.
Shoot your shot.
Boutte is a guy that is probably pretty good to bet on. So, all right. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to get you all kinds of this rookie content leading up to Dynasty rookie drafts. It is the off season, and that means it's Dynasty season. So we appreciate you subscribing for us. As always, thank you for listening, and we'll see you later.